The Way to Become a Person in Heaven While Living by teacher Myung. This poem is called A Fine Mind. The mind should be fine. When the mind is unclean, it is not fine but coarse. It is a muddle of this and that. A coarse mind has many conflicts. To have many conflicts means that life is difficult. Happiness, wealth, fame are only for a fine mind. There is only unhappiness for one with a coarse mind. A person whose mind is unclean has many ups and downs of what is good and what is bad. But a fine mind has no such undulations. Anything can be contained in that mind. He who has a fine mind is a pure-hearted person. He who has a fine mind is a person whose mind is wide like the sea. He who has a fine mind can accept everything. He who has a fine mind has only the mind of truth. Only the mind of truth is a fine mind. Nature's Flow by teacher Myung. This poem is called A Poem of Man. Man was created so that his mind would be one with heaven. However, he lives self-centeredly out of his own sense of superiority. Due to his superiority, he regards the gratitude of others to be towards him, and he hates those who have wronged him. His life in this world is not one that is of nature's flow, and so he must carry his own pain and burdens. Indeed, seeing him is difficult. His life is so unfortunate. Everyone awaits tidings from heaven that are gratifying, but none have come. And people have grown weary. People do not know that living with a sly and tricky mind kills them, not to mention their descendants. They live thinking that their well-being is what is most important. They live in a frenzy, for they are blinded by money. People are so childish. It is only when they know that heaven, earth, and man are one that they can lead a life that is of nature's flow. Out of their arrogance and impotence, they may shout out that they are superior, but none are superior or worth following. Heaven, earth, and man are one. But while heaven and earth know that all are one, only man dies following his body. He laughs merrily, wearing his dark mind on his sleeve, but his nervousness is plain to see. Listen, all of you, grow up, wise up. You have come to this world due to your karmic ties. But if you depart without knowing where you came from, you are sure to be deceived by your mind, and you will thus be lost. You must know everything while you are alive, so that the eternal you will live forever. Heaven's Formula for Saving the World by teacher Myung. This poem is called The Age of Discrimination. There are no clouds in the pristine, clear, blue-black sky. And even here on the earth, in America, great nature is silent and does not discriminate between you and me. People, however, discriminate between black, white, and yellow. Everyone's minds are different. Their minds are formed by the lives they live. And there is a lack of mutual understanding. Now and in the past, people do not know man's nobility. And although it cannot be seen, there is discrimination based on outward appearances. The present world is one where people live with mutual weariness. Mind by teacher Myung. This poem is called Awareness. The mind that does not change lives forever. This mind is the mind of truth. But thoughts are also minds. Everything in the world are minds, which originally do not change. In that origin, my mind of awareness exists. This is what lives forever, and this is the end of all truth. The path or the way to truth is confirming truth that simply just exists, and casting off burdens in order to get to truth. World Beyond World by teacher Myung. This passage is called Cause and Effect. Everything that is of the material realm exists because of cause and effect. A cause is the condition, reason for why there is a resultant effect or consequence. Accordingly, because there is condition, there is karma. A person who does not have money can gain it if he works. The cause here is diligence, while the consequence is the money earned. In order to be free from the cycle of causal actions and resultant effects, the cause must be eliminated so that there is no consequence whatsoever. He who has cleansed his mind is free from this cycle because he is no longer in it. Nature's Flow by teacher Myung. This poem is called Death. Death is the disappearance of an existent image. Death is the end of activity, the end of sustaining an image. Death is the end of an image's life. Death is to disappear from the world according to condition. Plants are born of their own accord and die of their own accord. Animals too are born of their own accord and die of their own accord. All come from one and return to one. This one is the universe. It is the eternal truth. The whole of creation is one, and this one is the eternal and everlasting foundation of all creations and their progenitor. Where you become true is the place of truth by teacher Myung. This poem is called Enlightenment. Enlightenment is what one comes to know when he comes out from his false mind world and becomes truth, which happens to the extent of how much falseness has been discarded. Truth emerges as much as one has been absolved of his sin and karma, and what he comes to know in the moment of realization is enlightenment. When the Bible tells us to believe with the heart and confess with the mouth, it is speaking of enlightenment. From the starting point of knowing nothing, man will come to know and be enlightened of many things along the way to becoming truth. The Enlightened World by teacher Myung. This poem is called Freedom. One's size exists because one's self exists. One's pain exists because one's self exists. One's self has become bound to them. When one truly and completely sheds one's self, one will no longer exist and only truth will live. Truth knows no hindrances, hang-ups, or regrets. Truth is open and connected through and through. It is one. Truth is freedom. Truth is ultimate freedom. World by teacher Myung. This poem is called Heaven One. Patches of clouds are afloat in the sky. They spark the fantasies of man. What exists beyond the blue sky? There is the endless sky, the source that is man's true nature, which has no end. Though man creates the sky and the patches of clouds, they simply exist as they are in heaven. The sky is heaven, but man cannot become heaven. Thus man lives bound to so many things. He is ignorant of the fact that every single creation in the world is heaven. Instead, man grows older daily as he constantly creates turmoil in his mind. Heaven simply exists as it is, without having been born and without ever dying. But man is the one who creates all sorts of things, with which he thinks and lives according to what he sees. Man lives not knowing that doing so is his karma. Nature's Flow by teacher Myung. This poem is called How to Find the Mind of the Universe with Ease. The mind has always been non-existent. That it is non-existent means that it exists. Non-existence and existence may seem like polar opposites. They are one and the same. The mind is neither existent nor non-existent. When man tries to see the reality of the mind, it is non-existent, for it is man who is seeing it. But in the world of the mind, its reality is that it is existent. This mind is what brought forth the whole of the universe, and it is this mind that nurtures it. Thus, it is according to this mind that the universe revolves. Though it is neither existent nor non-existent, the mind is the master. The mind is what governs man's life. which is why man is a slave to fate. The mind cannot be had, nor can it be seen, but it is the very foundation of the universe. What is the mind? The highest power and the greatest spirit that every religion speaks of, Buddha, God, Allah, the pure void, the wondrous existence, are all names that were made by man to refer to the mind. So what is exactly the mind? It is emptiness. It is the whole of creation. It is the universe. The mind came from nowhere, nor does it have somewhere to return to. It is the Alpha before the Alpha, the Omega after the Omega. Look to the celestial forms of the universe and see for yourself what this mind is. Look to yourself and to the earth, and ask yourself where the mind came from. Look at where it came from and where it will return. Man's mind will not die, even though he may die, for the mind is originally existent. Man places his mind into this existence, and thus he is unable to break free from it. He is yoked to it. He has yoked himself, no other. He lives in his self-imposed confinement, which he will continue to be in even after death. Such is the foolishness of man. Man is ignorant because he lives within himself. It is when man is no longer a man that he will become complete. But he does not know this. So then, what is the mind? To find the answer, you must look to yourself. You must ask yourself, who am I? Is this body, this shell, really who I am? You are not your body, you are in it. And it is this you that is your true self. This true self is what you should find. This true self is not dependent upon an image, and is yourself. Where is the mind? A silent person is walking along the road, but he is not silent. In fact, he has much to say. One listens closely to hear what he is saying, only to find his words are the emptiness. The emptiness is silent, but no one seems to know that it has a will, a purpose. Man is ignorant because he is shackled to himself. Do not judge the wind that blows, or the wind that lingers, but take stock in its true will. Where does the wind come from, and where does it go? When the universe and its creations scatter in the wind, they too are the wind. It is this wind that man lives chasing after, which is why his life is one that is in the wind, and so is he. The self has been neither existent nor non-existent, but has remained as it is. However, man lives bound to his self. Let us live having shed ourselves. Let us live free of them. Let us think about this. The mind originally exists, so it remains. Even if you were to abandon yourself, let us think about where that mind is. Every creation in this world is the mind. Every existent and non-existent creation is the mind. Each individual that is of the mind is the whole of the mind. What could this mind be, and where is it? Thoughts are born of the mind, and those thoughts are the thought mass, which is what prevents man from dying even when he is dead. Thus one's thoughts and one's mind are not separate, and neither are the body and the mind. Neither are the body and thoughts. So then where is the mind? The body and the universe are not separate either. So if this is the case, then where is the mind? The whole of creation and the universe are not separate, and heaven and man are one. So then where is the mind? Man and all creations are not separate. So where is the mind? Life is of the mind, and what deeds this mind does are also the mind. So then where is the mind? The mind is every creation in the universe. It is the mind that causes mischief in the world. Man's mind exists, but it is a sort of thought, and this thought is what causes so much turmoil within him. The true mind has no turmoil, but simply is. The life that man lives in the world is his mind, and so is his death. There is nothing that is not the mind. So then where is it? If he were to not have his own ideas of the mind in his mind, the mind would be easy to find. If the mind were to exist in his mind would be no longer existing. Therefore, the mind would be what he sees and what he hears, just as it is, in the absence of mind. The mind is a drifter. It is as it is. The mind is the universe itself. The mind has no discernment. Man is the one who discerns the mind. The mind is not located in a single place, but it is the whole of the universe. Man has put in great efforts to seek out the mind, to know what the mind is, to know that the mind is one, and that it is the universe. The mind is as it is. The mind is the state that is free of self. Close your eyes and go up to the universe. Look to the earth from the universe. Go to the moon. Go to the stars. Go to the sun. The mind is neither existent nor non-existent, but you have lived binding yourself to it. The mind, the thought, is still, but only you are busy. Silently, you must become the foundation and remain in that state as it is. World Beyond World by teacher Myung. This passage is called The Identity of God. The fourth dimensional universe, before the word universe even existed, is the land of God. God is the universe at its pre-universal state, and at the same time, God is the creator of the universe. The complete emptiness is the body of God, and within that body exists the sole, omnipresent mind of God. The Bible says that Jehovah stands above the wind, which means that God exists before the wind. The state of the universe before the word universe even existed is the state of God. The creator of the universe is God, and every single creation is the representation of God. This means that indeed there exists only one God, but so many different creations exist because despite being representations of the one and only God, each creation came to be according to condition. World Beyond World by teacher Myung. This passage is called The Meaning of Being Kind-Hearted. That a person is kind-hearted means that the true mind dwells in him. That we must be kind-hearted means we must have the true mind in us. Therefore, a kind person is one who is true. When Jesus Christ said that there is no one who is righteous in the world, he meant that there was no one in the world who had the true mind. That a person is kind-hearted means that he has become one with the true consciousness, the Jung body and the Shin mind of the universe. Furthermore, that a person is singular in his greatness also means that he has become one with this consciousness. World Beyond World by teacher Myung. This passage is called The Land of Light. God is called light because he is truth. He is called light because he is living and because he has the knowledge that is wisdom. God is man's original nature, the original nature within him that knows he is alive and deathless, and that it is the Master. This is why God is called light. The kingdom of God is the land of light. It is the living kingdom, the land of wisdom, the land of truth, the land of life, and the land of divinity. The land of light is that of the eternal, never-changing truth and of God. There is no death in that place, and it is where all creations live as one without pain or sorrow. It is the birthplace of all life, and it is where the whole of creation is given life. It is the land where everyone can rest well and just live as it is. Indeed, this land of light is where everything lives as animita. This land is in itself the completed state of animita. A person can only live if he is truth. He can live only if he is God, who is light. Only the eternal and never-changing God lives forever. But there is no one among humankind who is able to see the living God or his kingdom. This is because man is not poor in spirit, but rich in falseness. The Way to Become a Person in Heaven While Living by teacher Myung. This poem is called Live as the True Shape. Fly, rest, run, walk. Everything exists according to its own shape. Do not cry, do not laugh. Just live. Live as it is. Live as your true shape. Live without mind like nature, abiding by nature like rain, wind, clouds, water, and all creations. Live without mind like nature. Do without the mind of doing. Have great mercy and compassion. Love truly. Live with true affection, abiding by the flow of nature. Nature allows all creations to live. Through its fruits, its rewards. Likewise, just do as nature's flow, which is the greatest love in the universe. Just live that way. The true self dies when one lives only for his self, for his body. One dies because he has no true self. So be your own true shape and live as your own true shape. The true shape is a non-material entity, which exists but does not exist, which does not exist but exists. Non-material existence is great nature itself, and it is truth, which exists as it is without judgment or discernment. Mind by teacher Myung. This poem is called Mind 3. There is the original mind and the human mind. The original mind is the universe, and the human mind is thoughts. The human mind is created because one's struggle to survive creates thoughts, which form a self. Man's mind was originally the mind of the universe, but greed from the human mind came to exist because of his life. His human mind created his self. However, the human mind is also the mind of the universe. The human mind is a thought mass, whereas the mind of the universe is vitality. The human mind is a self that exists within the mind of the universe that is vitality. If man is to return to the place from whence he came, he must eliminate his mind. His mind was formed and set through the life he has lived. Eliminating this is to cast off all remembered thoughts. If he does not cast this off, he lives within himself, and in suffering, and even in death he bears burdens. One's human mind and one's thoughts refer to the same thing. But because man does not know this, he is not able to achieve truth. Man was made unable to return to the origin by the universe, because even though he is originally the universe, he makes thoughts and tears them down. When a person is created, he is born with the mind of a human being. And when an animal is made, it is born with the mind of an animal. Man and all creations have the same heart of the origin. Their forms are not things that exist, yet they are not non-existent either. There is a truly existing, real existence. All creations and their minds are all mind. The original mind is not separate from man's mind and the minds of all creations. But ego or self is different from the original mind. Because of greed, only when one sheds his greed is he complete. Mind by teacher Myung. This poem is called Nature's Flow 3. People's worries come from trying to make a living to survive. No one knows the principle that all things happen of and by themselves. Nothing in the world was born because it wanted to be. And it is not that one lives because he desires to live. All things are born and live according to their conditions. The Enlightened World by teacher Myung. This poem is called Nature's Flow. Nature's flow is one. Nature's flow is truth. Nature's flow is the whole of creation. Nature's flow has no hindrances. Nature's flow is equality. Nature's flow is us. Nature's flow is of itself. Nature's flow is a long space of time. Nature's flow is order. Nature's flow is trueness. Nature's flow is existence. Nature's flow is non-existence. Nature's flow is man. Nature's flow is life. Nature's flow is death. Nature's flow is nature itself. Nature's flow is to be as it is. Nature's flow is to have. Nature's flow is to have not. Nature's flow means to empty. Nature's flow means to fill. Nature's flow is the whole of the universe as it is. It is nature as it is. Mind by teacher Myung. This poem is called The Great Path. To see one's Buddha nature is to see one's own original nature. To become Buddha is to see from oneself after his minds have disappeared, and he has become one with all creations in the world. The unity of life and death is to find oneself within himself and realize life and death are not separate, but one. The real world is knowing the world before the mind, and in the truth of existence and non-existence, the complete path is that of both existence and non-existence. Just as one must see one's Buddha nature and become Buddha, to achieve the truth of non-existence is the same for the truth of existence. In existence, one must see the oneness of life and death, and be of the level where one knows the body and mind are not separate. To know is to always be one, with what is outside oneself. And when one's mind is not separate from heaven and earth, in the great path of heaven and earth, one knows everything. He knows all truth. Being and non-being are one, as are non-being and being. This is the truth of existence and non-existence. Truth, where one finds that which is true, is where existence is non-existence, and non-existence is existence. This is the never-changing truth that comes to light, and such is the great path, and the path of yin and yang, being without any want or lack, without anything further to know, and nothing that one does not know, is the new law and new path. That is the truth among truths. The real world is the world from whence the mind that existed before other minds came forth. The true world is the world that does not change, and it is eternal paradise. The great path brings to light the principle that where there is life, there is also death, and where there is death, there is life. Nature's Flow by teacher Myung. This poem is called The Whole of Creation is the Oneness. The whole of creation is the oneness. The whole of creation comes from the oneness and it returns to the oneness. When their individuality disappears, they become the oneness. When their individuality exists, they are not the oneness. Every creation acquires a different image depending on condition. All creations are the oneness. They come from the oneness, and to it they will return. The original nature and foundation of all creations are the same. Their purposes are the same. The purpose being that though they may be individual, their foundations are the same. For those foundations all came from the oneness. They all came from the one perfectness and have become individual perfections, which is why those individuals are perfection itself and are one. That they are perfection itself means that they are perfect as individuals. The Living Eternal World by teacher Myung. This poem is called True Love. True love is a love of purity. It is without condition. Only the mind of God as it is true love. The love that man speaks of is not true but false. True love is without discernment or conflict, nor does it have judgments of good and bad. To always love as it is, that is true love. To do so is the greatest love. To do so is nature's flow. Only God can truly love. The Enlightened World by teacher Myung. This poem is called Once. Listen, all of you. Truth is Anamita, yet truth is the existence of Nimitta within Anamita. Truth is the absence of all things, yet the existence of all things in the universe is also truth. When giving birth to the whole of creation, it is heaven's will to do so with harmony. All creations which live therein must realize the obvious logic that they must learn to discard their greed and coexist. Because one's individual self exists, others exist. It is truth that people understand that they are all one. It is truth that people do deeds absent of the thoughts that they have done them. A life of truth is a righteous life, one in which man lives absent of any wants in his mind. Righteousness means for everyone to know that they are one, and to act accordingly. It is important for people to know that they are one. A complete life is one in which man does not live based on greed. A complete life is one simply lived according to the flow of nature. When man lives his life in non-existence, he will become others, and so naturally all conflicts would disappear, and man would live a life that is of nature's flow, and he would be able to live decently. Man, because he is man, lives a life that is focused on making a living, but originally, man should live a life of oneness. A life in which he as an individual does not exist, for it is only when he lives such a life that it is a true life indeed. A true life is one in which there is no distinction between you and me. A true life is one in which there is no such thing as rank. A true life is one in which there is no dual life. If man were to have no wants, he would know the value of man. If man were to have no wants, he would not live in his thoughts. If man were to have no wants, he would live absent of his mind. If man were to have no wants, there would be no superior persons or inferior persons. If man were to have no wants, there would be no ranks. If man were to have no wants, there would be no such thing as high class or low class. If man were to have no wants, his mind would be unbiased. If man were to have no wants, he would have the will to live. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to live well. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to fulfill everything. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to enter into the one truth. If man were to have no wants, he would be happy and peaceful. If man were to have no wants, he would become me. If man were to have no wants, he would not be above me. If man were to have no wants, he would come out into truth and live together with me. If man were to have no wants, his mind would be in comfort. If man were to have no wants, he would not be stubborn. If man were to have no wants, he would have no pride or sense of self. If man were to have no wants, he would have no delusions. If man were to have no wants, he would not be conceited. If man were to have no wants, his core would not be his self. If man were to have no wants, he would be able to live in truth, which is a life that is of nature's flow. If man were to have no wants, research would become so easy, whereby a science that benefits humankind would develop to the utmost. If man were to have no wants, politics would be righteous, and so everyone would be at ease and would live as one. If man were to have no wants, people's standards of living would be equal. If man were to have no wants, culture would flourish to the utmost. If man were to have no wants, he would have no pride, and so there would be no conflicts. If man were to have no wants, homes, societies, and nations would be endlessly peaceful. If man were to have no wants, he would be loyal to what he does of his own accord. If man were to have no wants, he would live serving others. Therefore, people would be able to live with their minds at ease. There would be no thieves or robbers. Not one person would harbor a malevolent mind. There would not be a single person who torments others. People would all be one no matter where they go, and so the world would be a wonderful place to live. Man's wants have made the world what it is today. He thinks that so many different things exist in the world, which is why homes, societies, and countries have become selfish, ones in which he seeks to live well alone. Therefore, man is in a constant state of unhappiness and darkness. A mind absent of wants is the true mind. A mind absent of wants is the real truth. A mind absent of wants is one which knows that heaven, earth, and man are one. A mind absent of wants is one which knows where man came from and where man will go. A mind absent of wants is one which will live forever in heaven after death. Heaven must be one, earth must be one, and man must be one, in order for the world to be right. Heaven, earth, and man must be one, in order for the world to be right. The Way to Become a Person in Heaven While Living by teacher Myung. This poem is called What is Pride? Pride is the protection of one's self, which is a false existence. True pride is to have truth. One's mind consists of the accumulation of false images. One lives with that mind, and so the narrower his mind, the stronger his pride. When there is no mind of one's self, He lives as it is, even when he faces confrontations. He lives as it is. Even when he must face the wind, he lives like the wind. Like water, he lives just as he is shaped. Everything is one. Everything is truth itself. However, in the narrow, selfish minds of humans, there is no truth. One cannot live like wind and water, because his mind cannot become the wind and water, because it cannot become great nature. When one is rid of all conditions and throws away all of his desires, he sees all as it is and lives as it is. He is the highest one. Even though he may suffer loss in the world, he lives silently, for he is the highest one. Only one whose mind becomes the mind of nature has no enemies. A person with the mind of nature hates no one. When there are no images of the shadows of past memories, and only truth remains in his mind, then he is one who has been reborn as the mind of nature, because he is great nature itself. He is one who is one with nature. Where You Become True is the Place of Truth by teacher Myung. This passage is called, What is the End of the World? It is a common misconception that when the end of the world comes, the world will disappear. It is said that when the end of the world comes, countless people will die, while those who have faith in their religion will not. Although many people predicted the time when the world will end, no one got it right, because they did not know the true meaning of the end of the world. The end of the world, when all people die, except for the faithful who are taken to heaven, will never come. This misunderstanding has come about because the Bible and the Buddhist scriptures and other religious scriptures have been wrongly interpreted. A certain religion believed that their followers would physically levitate into the air and be taken to heaven. They waited for this event with over 500 media representatives watching, but the levitation never happened. The true meaning of the end of the world is the end of man living in the false world. It is man being reborn as truth in the true world. Levitation means man's consciousness, which had been confined in his mind world, is reborn as the true mind, the consciousness of the great universe itself. This is the true meaning of levitation into heaven. The Buddhist scriptures, the Bible, and other scriptures are truth, but they were all written figuratively. The reason each religion has been split into so many different sects is people are unable to interpret them with the mind of truth, and instead interpret them with their own conceptions and habits. The end of the world is the time when falseness becomes truth, and it is also the time of salvation. Unless falseness becomes truth, the world and one's false self will disappear. This is the end of the world that people speak of. This is death. Falseness is the world and all other innumerable things man keeps inside his mind. It is the picture world. We must be reborn in the true world after the picture world disappears. No one knows the true world or the false world, which is why people do not know the true meaning of the end of the world and live in fear. People are so foolish enough to believe that only what is theirs and their own false ways of thinking are right. Those who are consumed by their own religion or philosophies must find what is truly right by learning to accept other things. If one is not true now, isn't he false? It is illogical for someone who is false to say he is right. To put it differently, one must become truth, interpret the true scriptures truly, know its true meaning, and he must become the true truth. Isn't this the way to live at the time of the end of the world? We must keep our eyes wide open to whether a method to become truth exists in the world. We must not meet the unlucky fate of our world coming to an end.